Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Rise to take a call on behalf of the Green Party in the committee stages of this bill, and I would like to start by responding to some of the points that were made by the Minister. And she made several points. One of her first point was in response to the New Zealand First MP Tracy Martin's concerns about the predictive risk modelling aspect of this bill, where the government is going to be taking child, youth and family data, school exiting information data, educational outcomes and the sex of young people to put all of that together and decide if this young person is going to have a long-term financial liability on the state. Not whether, you know, that person may have additional needs, but whether there's long-term financial liability on the state as a result of those factors. Now, the Minister's response to those concerns from that member were that, well, the Select Committee made a great change to the bill, that yes, it was a bit tough that the young person was never going to find out about that risk modelling, so the committee's recommended that they get that information and they are able to correct any inaccuracies. Now, we are talking about 18 and 19-year-olds, and I need to restate that. We are talking about adults in this legislation. And while the committee did make the recommendation to change it so the young people will find out why they're considered to be such a risk, they will not have the ability to say, actually, that's your analysis. That does not match how I see myself, and I don't think that service that you're offering me will be useful. So 18 and 19-year-olds, adults, will be given a phone call, and MSD did tell us, the officials told us, that yes, they did recognise this would be a difficult phone call, but they hadn't quite worked out how they were going to have the conversation yet, but we should feel okay that they'll work that out. So I'm imagining, I'm an 18-year-old, I've been made unemployed from my workplace along with another mate the same age. We've gone into work and income together or applied online, as we may have been encouraged to now, and I get this phone call. My mate doesn't, and they say, well, so your family had dealings with child, youth and family, you didn't do so well at school, we think you're a risk, so we want to offer you this service where you're going to be given a money card, you'll have maybe $50 cash that you can have control over, the rest we'll have control over, you'll have to give us all your financial data, any debts you have, your rents, all of this details of your life, and you're going to have to report to us often and regularly, and you know, this is, and I might come back to them and say, oh, well, actually, you know, the situation in my family, I had a really awesome auntie. And while things sucked at home and child, youth and family got involved, I had this really strong relationship and I've already been into a job and, you know, like actually I don't think you're describing me as who I am. I think I've got some strengths to offer here. Well, that person on the other end of the phone might say, oh, okay, fair enough. You can go through the usual channels, but they might not. They might say, well, too bad. And that's the legislation we're passing here, is to remove the control of our young adults to be able to define themselves. And if we have this concern for our young people, then what we know in terms of all of the research around youth development is what will make a difference for a young person who is disconnected or struggling is to connect with them on a human level and focus on their strengths and help them develop their strengths. And that the more you focus on their risks or the things that have gone wrong in the past, then the more present that becomes in their life, the more they are defined by that and are unable to escape that. The pathway for, Mr. Chair.
Chair Logie.
The pathway for young people to be successful in life and to be resilient and overcome challenges in their life is to focus on their strengths and build strong relationships with other people who can support them. So this piece of legislation has some fundamental flaws. One, that it focuses on risk. It infantilises those young people and takes away their control. And thirdly, it just doesn't focus on what's possible. And the Minister, in her second point of rebuttal previously, was saying that this isn't about a burden, this isn't about being negative, this is about having high aspirations. Well, the test of that is whether the Minister will support Carmel Cepolone's SOP to have this to NCEA level 2 equivalent or higher. Because this is the same government who is telling us they have aspirations, who got rid of the training incentive allowance that actually enabled sole parents to be able to have a pathway into higher paid jobs. Pulling up the ladder. Absolutely keeping people stuck and putting barriers in front of them, in fact, to be able to achieve more in their lives and to be able to support their families. That is not having higher aspirations. This legislation and the entire tenor of it is set on a level that just doesn't have confidence in people's abilities for themselves and keeps putting barriers in their way to be able to take control of their own lives. And one of the other parts I did want to mention again is that in terms of that relationship building for young people and what helps them if they are in a bad place is a relationship of trust. And this legislation also fundamentally alters that relationship of trust between the young people and the people in the community that they previously could go to be their sounding board, to be their person that they could rely on and process everything with. Because those person have been turned into people who have given the role of reporting back to work and income. And if they're not meeting their obligations, has the ability to sanction their income, which threatens their entire ability to put their roof over their head. That is not a trust-based relationship. I know some organisations are doing some great work within this model despite it. I will acknowledge that. But we have heard from some young people in a service that we went to where they closed the door so that the people running the service could not hear the conversation that they were having with us because they didn't think that that was safe, and who quietly told us about people being sanctioned that they'd never seen coming back to the course, and for tangi, for very understandable reasons where people were absent and then they were sanctioned. So this is not this perfect model, and it was raised by the National Beneficiary Advisory Group where they had concerns of the lack of transparency in this model, is that there aren't the communication channels for people outside, for those young people to know what their appeal rights are, where actually they may be able to challenge things, and there isn't the transparency for us to be able to find out what's happening in there either. And one of the other points that the Minister made is she was saying that we care about the life outcomes of these young people. It's not just about the money, it's not really. Well, then again, my challenge back to the Minister is change your better public service targets to make them about the well-being of young people and about the proved, earning potential or just well-being or mental health or any of those things that actually matter, rather than a reduction on the financial liability for welfare. That is not having aspirations for our young people. And if you say you care and you care about their life outcomes, then change your better public service target and we might believe you. But this legislation sits within a context of investing
and a whole lot of bureaucracy rather than what I see in terms of the day-to-day life of these young people, and money that could have otherwise been spent in our communities building relationships with those people that would last for an entire lifetime, that would be strength-based, that would enable them to have the skills themselves.
Alfred Ngaro.